Hello Internet and welcome to my video on cracking tech interviews. I've tried to put together a 1 month prep schedule which should make your job easy in preparing for interviews. The target we're going through is with an assumption that you already have a career in computer science and you're not a newbie into technology. The first part we're going to be covering is around what we need to prepare on the beginning, which is the coding skills. Oftentimes these days we have seen companies give their candidates a set of coding online exam, which could be on any of the portals like LeetCode, HackerRank, the couple more new ones like CoderPad and things like that. The questions that come here are, there are a lot of solutions available online, but it's very vast if you try to study. So my suggestion is if you can go about going through the beginner and the intermediate level of questions. Generally, the interview prep kits they contain around 15 to 20 questions. So if you are very thorough with the ideas and the concepts that are covered in those questions, you should be good in terms of answering the rest of the variants that they give you. The only thing you need to be mindful is about the corner cases. The test cases that they upload internally in their database generally cover a lot of corner cases where the percentage of success is determined. So intermediate to beginner level, 5 days of coding skills. If you already have a programming language already picked up, let's say Java or Python, you should be okay. The next part would be data structures and algos, very popular with tier one companies. But oftentimes, what we see is they're focusing on linear data structures like lists and sets, the arrays and the trees. The question here generally comes with a problem statement and then they ask you to optimize your solution. So for this to happen, you may have to really, learn the beginner and the intermediate again. Let's say if you pick trees, you have to know about the traversals, defining the depth of a tree, finding the height, the fundamental concepts. If you are aware, if a new problem is presented to you, you will be able to work through your solution. So I'd say another 5 days, mix and match between coding skills and DS and algo. The first 10 days should be okay. We will again revisit this towards the end where we're going to do a revision. But for now, 10 days for coding skills and algos. The next part are programming languages. Although you're good with your computer skills, oftentimes the Java and the programming languages that you use, like Python, PHP, scripting languages, there are a lot of things that you apply for which are questioned on, and there are a lot of discussions on those lines. So I would strongly recommend another 5 days for you to kind of brush up your coding skills in the programming language side, where you're understanding the new versions or releases of Java, or let's say any other tools you're using, frameworks you're using. Try to understand the breaking changes and what's really relevant in the software world in those languages. If you can brush them up in 5 days, that should be okay. And it kind of gives you a break from your first 10 days of coding, and you're pretty much learning up the theory and trying to put them into action. So this should be a refreshing change for you. We are now at the end of this. You'll be at the 15th day of prep. At this point, I would strongly recommend you take a couple of interviews in the mid to lower end of the segment. Not really a dream job, but some company that kind of tells you where you stand and how well prepared you are. By this, you will know pretty much your weak point and your confidence level in attending interviews. The last part is puzzles and system designs. If you go to the tier one companies, they try to understand if you have a hold over the entire landscape of IT system, how a system is designed, how things work, and how puzzles used to be until very recently in the managerial rounds, or when they're very close to making a decision. Generally, the senior management people, when they come in for a managerial round, a puzzle would be given. Nowadays, lesser than that, less of puzzles and more of system design is in vogue. Let's say there are popular apps like Instagram and WhatsApp. People would try to understand by with you on paper how these could be designed for an enterprise architecture. Now, it's not really complicated. There are ready-made answers to this. If you master 2 to 3 apps, You should be good in terms of defining your own assemblies for system design. So I think that should be okay. Give it another couple of days. This kind of gives you a break from the programming in the first 10 days and the 5 days of theory that you've gone through. And this is the checkpoint. You give it 2 days, that should be okay. If you really want to go through puzzles, the dream companies that you are attending, generally there are a list of puzzles. You go to websites like Career Cup or Glassdoor where people upload their interview experiences. A lot of these puzzles along with the answers are already there. So if you really go through these, that should be okay. You're pretty good. By now we are at the 17th day of prep, and you can start applying and for your jobs, and you will also know by now what your weak points are. Let's say DS and Algo, what you went through in the first 10 days, it needs a refresher. Or let's say the programming language side, you think that you have left out something which you were not able to cover. The rest of the days until the day 30, pretty much you can cover all of it. And I would also strongly urge you to keep attending interviews or attending you start doing a couple of boot camps, or surf through the web and try to see your understanding and where you stand among the rest of the candidates. The last part is the interview day tips. Whatever said and done, whatever you've prepared, when you go for an interview, I strongly recommend, don't be too eager. Don't show your desperation for a job, at least when it's a dream company. Let's say you're going to Google or an Amazon or a Facebook for your interview, but show genuine interest. When I mean genuine interest, it's about your willingness to solve problems. Your people are really looking for folks who have a good learning curve, who are very much interested in learning, and they're looking at people who have the right attitude to pick skills on the job. They are looking for experts, no doubt, but there is always an inch of attitude and your outlook to work and the technical orientation that matters a lot. So I would say, very strongly recommend you be inclined towards your technical roles. And also please go through your JD, the job description, the job you're applying for and interviewing for, generally has a small write-up. Make sure that you go through it. That generally gives you a hint about what technologies they're looking at, what kind of an expertise they have on. And pretty much sometimes they give away a hint about what the application landscape should be looking at. You see Java with Kafka, and you see a Spring Boot, all of this stitched together. You can pretty much understand or at least guess the landscape that you're stepping into. And last point, but not the least, always know what's on your resume. More importantly, don't bluff. With all this said, you'll still have a lot of days before your interview starts for you to revive and review all the topics that you've gone through. So, good luck and all the best to you. And I hope you enjoyed the video. In the description, I'm going to be leaving you a few interesting and a few helpful links that should help you get your prep along, so that the curriculum is defined and you know what you need to be studying. All right, all the best and stay tuned.